Hi everyone, welcome to this evening's webinar where I'm delighted to have Kristen Wright as our guest this evening. Highly experienced analyst working with the UKSI with a diverse background in a lot of different roles. So we'll talk to Kristen shortly. Just some of you are joining us who've been before. I can see Mike, Pod and Michelle have already got the memo here. So on the chat to the right-hand side, if you can click on that area, tell us your name, where you're joining from, maybe tell us the club and the sport that you're involved with as well. So underneath the chat area, you'll also see a question mark, and you can use that to ask questions throughout the session. And we can ask them to Kristen, and I'll maybe prompt them as we go through for different sections, and we'll come to them at the end as well. And as always, when we finish this webinar, you'll be able to watch it back straight away from there as well. So we are going to look at Kristen's early career and getting started in performance analysis. So some of the roles that she had there, we're then going to look at how things progressed to Millfield School, where I met Kristen, talking about relationship building there with coaches, and obviously then moving into her UKSI role and working with Canoe, Slalom and Kayak Cross with Paddle UK. And as I said, Q&As as we go through. So for those that don't know, obviously Analysis Pro, that's ourselves. I'm Josh. I've got Ollie here as well and Bradley joining us. So we're all about trying to educate on the benefits of video analysis and give lots of different solutions throughout. So whether that's filming, using analysis tools, or sharing those resources. So if you haven't met us before, hello. We've got lots to help out with, but what we want to do is knowledge share, which is the reason that Kristen is here. So what I will do is, let's just move things over here. Sorry, Brad. See Ollie. Off we go to the side. So yeah, Kristen's going to take us through her journey and those key moments as we've talked about. So Kristen, welcome. Thanks for coming along. Can you tell us where this all began for you, your PA journey?
Yeah, good question.
Big question, sorry.
Big question.
Let's think back about your masters. What was your masters in, and where do we go from there?
Yeah, I did a master's in high performance science back in Australia, and it was looking at elite sport. I still was at a level at that stage, just didn't know what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to work with elite athletes, but I didn't know what discipline I want to be focusing on. So I thought quite a broad postgrad, hopefully answer those questions a bit, and did that, which I really enjoyed. So yeah, I dabbled a bit in PA in that side, but to be honest, I left my master's still having questions on what I want to focus in. So yeah.
So your master's was elite sport and learning about those different environments. Then obviously PA is something you wanted to try out. How did you start trying that out? What was kind of your first step after the masters?
My first step in data and statistics was during my masters. I tried to get as much experience working in elite sport to see if that environment was what I wanted to get into. So I did work at an AFL club in a trainer role, so nothing to do with data or analytics, but just experience myself to that environment. But I did statistics at the Brisbane International, which is a tennis tournament just before the Australian Open. And that's when I really got into or understood the impact data could have. Our role there was to collect data live during the event. Data was going straight up to broadcasting and to the coaches on the bench as well as a third party provider. So yeah, that was my experience during my postgrad. And then after that, I moved to the UK because I knew I wanted to be in London for the Olympics 2012 and want to experience that as a spectator. Obviously, absolutely loved it. But while I was here, I wanted to delve more into that elite job prospect and heard a lot more about performance analysis over in the UK than it was at that time in Australia. So yeah, I found out about it over here.
Nice. And So they're thinking about that, the data roles there, and with the tennis stuff, and like to me that sounds pretty much in at the deep end, that you are doing, though it's a third party, it's live, and the information you're collecting is going to broadcast and going to coaches straight away. And normally I think we all kind of work ourselves up to working live and supporting things, but you jumped straight in. What what challenges was that? How did you overcome some of those?
Yeah, it was, you're working in a team as well. So you're working together, maybe in a group of three. And if something went wrong, it was together. You had to pick yourself up. So how you worked as a team with that as well. And especially with people, you don't really spend much time because they chop and change who you're working with. So understanding how to work quickly in a team and being open and honest with each other was a huge lesson to learn. But I think it really showed how much I thrived in a elite environment or a high pressure environment. Just the noise in the background, and just what sport brings and the adrenaline it does add to it. So, and ability to calm yourself down in those moments as well, but knowing the excitement around it, definitely showed there.
Yeah, I like that. But obviously then, so that's, it was a team of analysts, of statisticians, however you want to say that. But you weren't directly involved with supporting those athletes or those teams. Did you have, before moving to the UK and work in some of the roles that we'll come to, did you have experience of working with teams in other roles?
Yeah, so when I moved over for the Olympics, I couldn't get a PA job, so I then moved back to Australia, and then realized I want to be a performance analyst. I was like, okay, what do I need to get there? So I really had to understand what a video analysis software was. I didn't even know what that was. We looked at dartfish at uni more of a biomechanics rather than a PA perspective. So I just went back to Australia and dabbled in a bit of all different sports and having to understand that. I remember applying for a job and I was very excited, and this could be a dream job, and didn't get even an interview. And I called up and just wanted to know if I could get a bit more feedback from it. And they did, which was excellent. And the feedback was, you haven't got any experience in video analysis software. I didn't even know what it was, to be honest. And they said, why are we going to hire somebody who's going to have to spend a year upskilling when we could just hire somebody who already knows and go into that? So then it's like, okay, brilliant. And then they gave a bit of feedback, how to delve in, learn different softwares out there, and how I could put myself in that position. So yeah, that was, always remember that as huge advice from somebody at an early stage that really pushed me to delve a bit deeper into it.
So almost like your basis is having some of those technical skills, like software, learning how to use those tools, and that's kind of what you'd build upon. Obviously you had your background and your MSc and the elite sports and what you wanted to do, but it's almost like your first step through the door, you had to have that base technical skills within that.
Yeah, definitely. And that's why even over in the UK, when I was applying for jobs, I wasn't getting answers because I just didn't have that understanding or that technical skills to begin with. So that was quite obvious, and that's why I went out and delved into learning myself. So I bought sports code for a year. I just shut myself into it and just learn the ins and outs of it to give myself an opportunity that if I was to apply for the same role again, that I should have a better chance of doing it. So
yeah, I think that's such a key thing in it. Like with anything, just jump into it, get your hands on tools, make use of trials or buy software, buy courses, do all those things, and really just that technical base skill that's there. So obviously, we had then you said going back to Australia and you taught yourself with software. Did you then start working with teams from that back in Oz?
Yeah. So I had my own business as such. I was going out to different clubs, working more as S&C, pre-season training with a few clubs just to get out there, get experience in multiple sports. Mainly was working with a baseball team. And that's when I knew about the analysis. So they were really good input to just go and ask, do you want me to deliver some PA to you for free while I learn about this software? I can use you as a sport to learn, but also could have a slight bit of impact and get some feedback from their side as well. So that worked really good. But I was learning a software plus also learning a lot about sport that I didn't know much about, to be honest. So yeah, challenging, but yeah, it was definitely a learning curve for sure.
Yeah, so you learned how to use sports coding software when you were working with a baseball team.
Yeah,
and learning baseball at the same time.
Yeah.
Another check yourself in at the deep end there.
Yeah. Definitely like a challenge, but
yeah, nice. Okay.
Say the support from the software at that time, you could always ask questions. They helped you on the journey. I took my experience and understanding of netball into it. So I know a lot about netball. So instead of learning two things at the same time, I thought, okay, let's use a sport I already know with the software I don't know. Learn how to do it with the netball match, just obviously grabbing off online. And once I felt a bit more confident in the software, I could then delve into another sport that I didn't know. So that was my way of approaching it rather than going full on at the beginning. So
yeah, nice. Yeah, learning the technical skills of the software with something that that you know with netball, but then I've counted here 4 sports so far. So before we do the next section, just because it gives me a chance, Ollie, would you mind dropping in a link on the starter courses? Because a good way for people that are listening here, with obviously if you want to learn some technical skills, the NAC Sport starter course that Ollie will drop into the chat is an intensive course. You learn some stuff, but you then get a longer access to software. So if we think about Kristen's lessons there with dive in and get using tools, use anything that, in reality, let's pretend I'm not saying this. In reality, it doesn't matter what software you're using. It's the process that you want to go through. A lot of them have the same learning steps within them, don't they, Kristen? And then it's just about how you apply that to one of the 4 sports we've done so far. So we've got Aussie football, we've got baseball, we've got tennis and netball. So, so from those roles and back in Oz, is this now when we take a jump again back over to the UK?
Yes, yeah. I added probably the last year before I moved over. So Champion Data is a third-party company where I was working with Aussie Rules Football. So that was probably another level. So very similar to what I was doing with tennis, but doing it with Aussie Rules Football, which you got a lot more information to be collecting. So everything you're collecting live into that. And to that, I also work with netball. So same company, I was providing that with netball. So being out in the stadiums and being part of a sport, but in the background. So the information was sent out to the analysts of the teams, but also to the general public and the supporters. So you're part of it, but you're also to the side. And then delved into working with the Australian Open. So my Brisbane international experience led me to the Australian Open, where I worked for a few years doing the statistics. And that was, once again, another level of, of sporting experience and the pressure that brings as well.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of pressure on yourself there, but also pressure in the situations that you're in. I think that obviously contributes to that accelerated learning and skill set that you've got. I guess there, from those high pressure environments you talked about, thriving in those, excited by them, but with that data going live to broadcast into those teams, and I think here about people that are watching and will be supporting teams live. I guess there's almost like a threshold you have to be aware of what you can do accurately at that time. How did you learn, or what can you share around that?
Yeah, really interesting, because a lot of that time it's not full-time work. You're often a casual, and there's a lot of you being a part of that journey. There was a mixture doing it live, but also you knew somebody else was going to go through it and definitely correct it all. But as a team, you work through how you want to be as reliable. So we used to record ourselves, and in the times we could go back and double check everything that we would flag up. And there was a process of linking in and making sure everyone is collecting the right thing. So it was a lot of teaching between each other, and the leaders will always double check and make sure we are all being reliable in that space. But it's quite interesting being on the other side of it now, when it's one or two of us compared to a group of people. And unfortunately, you need that number of people to pull out the information you are pulling out. So it's understanding the importance of it.
Yeah, but it's quite. You touched on there, and we'll talk about it later. You said that people check in, but also teaching each other and that support network. Seems quite important with that. So obviously from there, now should we jump back over? Should we come back over to the UK and then talk about the next role? Okay, so tell us the role where we met up then. Talk us through how that came about.
I got a week's notice to move back to the UK. So I just jumped on it and came over. So opportunity at Millfield came up where David interviewed me, probably midnight on a Friday, and jumped at opportunity to work with multiple sports and multiple coaches from different levels, and thriving in a very elite environment that Millfield is. So came over here.
And that was so I think I'm right, we're at the four sports, and then we go to Millfield. How many sports did you work with at Millfield?
I'd count 11 over an academic year. So not all at once, but sometimes there would be a huge overlap or a lot of sports at one time, because of teams doing very well that they kind of overlap a bit. So obviously summer was purely just cricket, whereas the winter and the spring were quite loaded with a number of sports.
And I think they're like going from the champion data group, and then like you said, working in a team, to now you were the only analyst supporting multiple teams and different coaches. So I can imagine lots of different challenges that came up there, but let's pick some of them and explore what was the biggest challenge you faced going in and working with these different teams and the different coaches.
The biggest challenge, and I think the learning, would have been the relationships. Relationships are so important in this role, and knowing that everyone is different, and not to approach everyone in the same way, and that it's okay that everyone is different, and you might have to speak to people in a different way just to keep them on board. Some coaches and athletes are really excited to be playing with the data and understanding it, and just want to keep learning on that. And then obviously you got others on the other side who might be intimidated and think they're being pushed aside a bit, or and understanding that it's a teamwork together. So that was a huge learning that I think I was working, when I look back, about 16 coaches I was probably working with over 11 sports. That's a lot of different personalities and individuals you are learning about and working with.
And those ones that were not as receptive to it straight away, how can you overcome that? How did you start to kind of bridge those gaps?
I think because I was still quite early in my analysis journey at that stage, I was probably giving a lot of information to them. Look at all this information I've taught you. I can make a pretty graph. I can give a lot of clips and done it quite easily and quite quickly. But then looking back and thinking, they're not using any of this. They're probably not sharing it or talking about it with their athletes. A lot of the coaches, so we're sometimes full-time teachers as well. So their priority wasn't that. If it wasn't a passion, it'd be really hard to find time for them to even just build that relationship or get them to talk about it and want to focus on it. So once I realized that some people I needed to pull back a bit. It was then trying to figure out the pinpoints that we could develop that relationship on, and understanding what strengths they have that I can pull in to make sure we are there as a team. I'm meant to be, the right hand side of a coach rather than like separated, and we're meant to be doing it together. So yeah.
And I guess a practical approach to doing that is, and you've talked it when we've talked before about going there, being with the coach, being seen, and where would you go to be seen? What environments would you put yourself in with those coaches at Millfield?
Yeah, because back then I had I can't remember, quite a few IP cameras. So you could easily be in
good
the
IP cameras as well. Very good
yeah,
IP cameras.
very good. You could quite easily be in my office and not move and connect to the hockey course on the other side of the campus or the rugby pitch, and you could quite easily sit there and just log in, record, upload it, and they're gone. But nobody sees you, and the athletes, I don't often know, like they could walk past me, not actually know my role. So then I would put myself in a position that I would go to the hockey pitch, connect there, still record, but be around the environment and just so I can be more seen. Then, just so the athletes can see you, the coaches can see you. You have a chance to be a part of that environment as well, and have those conversations. I try to go on a lot of the away trips, just so just as simple as a bus ride. You can have a easy conversation, or just to be a part of a conversation with an athlete or a coach. When you're on a couple-hour bus ride. So yeah, trying to get myself out and around. Yeah,
nice. And those conversations, obviously, as you keep developing that rapport, and think about those 11 different sports that you're working with, the 16 different coaches, I guess the stronger that relationship, you can start asking those questions of what do they actually want? Because I guess at the start, you're also kind of coming in pretty blind to a lot of these sports and what the coaches want. And you're in that tricky situation of going, this is the value I can bring, so I'm going to show you all the stuff I can do, but then balancing it with what do they actually want, what do they actually need, and then so that comes down to asking questions, I guess.
Yeah, 100%. It's both sides. I know tennis and netball very well, having to be participated when I was younger. So, but am I also just pulling out things that I think you should know rather than what the coach needed? But then you've also got rugby or hockey that I've never worked with or understood or delved into as much as you need to as an analyst. So then you also building a rapport with the coach that I don't know rugby, but please let me learn, be a part of it. So there's the two parts. No matter how much you know about it, it's making sure you're provided the insights that the coaches and the athletes could use. Otherwise, most of the time it's kind of pointless, isn't it? Which is sad to think, but a lot of work for not much value, I'd say.
Yeah, really good point. So obviously with those lots of different coaches and David and Ollie, maybe could you share the link of the webinar that we did with David before as well? Because if people haven't watched that, it's a really good webinar we did previously with David. He was director of sport at Millfield when Kristen was there as well. But the point I'm getting to here, Kristen, is you are developing a bigger network of people. Obviously, David's really well connected, all those coaches. And you were at Millfield, I think, was it three years, 2015 to 18?
Yeah, it's about 2.5 years.
Okay. And then, what with all those skills and things you're developing now, so very different from that first interview when someone said you've got no skills or experience, and you've now got a lot of things under your hat, a lot of different sports. Where did you want to go to next? It sounds to me you've done third party away from being involved. You've been directly involved with the team. You've been in multi-sports and an organization, but your background is obviously with elite sport. Millfield School is elite sport, but at a student level. Where did you want to go to next?
Yeah. And it was 11 sports, but there was more sports who want to be involved. So then you're spreading yourself really thin. So you don't want to say, especially early on in your career, you always want to be saying yes. You don't want to be saying no to things. So you're taking on more, but there is only one, and there wasn't an opportunity to bring in another person. So you're then having to spread yourself really thin, which I was feeling for my development and my where I want to be going. I want to be working with one sport, so then I could delve a bit deeper into it, and also maybe at a higher level with an older group of athletes, because obviously they're still school age students. There's only so much you can share with them and develop with them. So it was like looking at maybe one sport that I know the athletes and the coaches really well, and I feel like I am giving insights and making progress with them.
Okay, cool. So how did you then make that jump? What opportunities came up, and where did you progress to?
I think it was quite early on at Milford. David got me in contact with Julia Wells, who's now the head of the performance analysis at UKSI. And she's got a huge range of experience, as hopefully most of you know. And just getting to know, she came down, visited, got to know her really well. And then I started going to a lot of conferences, like ISPAS, the Performance Analysis Conference. So you're meeting other people, if it's the academic side or the applied, because at Milfield or anything before, it was often just me, and actually talking to another analyst and understanding the common problems that we all have, and just knowing their development and what my next steps would be, I found like really beneficial. And just the networking side, as much as we love and hate it, this kind of career and understanding really helps with that. So that was great experience to be sharing my story and what I did with Milford with others, also understanding what else is out there and the support network outside.
Okay, cool. So then I think that's a really important part of that whole networking and shared experience stuff and learning from everyone. Now, obviously, you talked about Julia there, and then your role after Milfield was going to Canoe Slalom and UKSI, or EIS as it was then. So what was your, because when you start, I'm trying to ask a question that I know the answer to, but I'm not giving away. Hey, look, there's breaks the third wall, everyone. So when you first went into the Canoe Slalom role, what was your position then? What did you enter into? How did things change? Let's see if we can do that.
I came in as I think it was called an under-23 analyst. We had a lead analyst at the time. He was looking after the senior team, so meaning he would go to all the senior competitions, and then I would go to the under-23 junior competitions, and then we'll both support back home in Lee Valley. So that was the starting point. I had to learn a sport I didn't know anything about. And I was like, Julia also had my role quite a few years before, and I just knew her passion for the sport. So I went in going, I know there's a huge passion for this sport. I knew nothing about it, so I had to learn about this sport. I'd say quite quickly, but also there is no rush, because you want to make sure you're getting the most out of it, but also how to do something live while you're traveling with the sport. Whereas Milfield, you often do a lot of stuff at the campus already, so it's already there.
Yeah. And that was 2018 you joined, which is obviously halfway through Olympic cycle at that point. So you were under 23 analyst, and then what happened after that?
Yeah. So that year, the lead analyst, he moved on, and we're going to Rio for the World Championships, post the Rio Olympics the year, and I all of a sudden was going to go to 2 races that year, end up being about 7. So my calendar definitely changed, and I had a short amount of time to upskill while he was still there to teach me and learn from. So accelerated that learning, and it was an opportunity to prove myself that I was capable to be with the senior guys rather than somebody to be employed to fill that lead spot again. So a bit of an acceleration, ability to prove myself and my understanding of the sport to then be part of that senior setup.
Yeah. Perfect. So before we go into some of the roles that you've got there, shall we show people? I've got a video here that you recommended. How can I do this? Is it showing? So this is this the kayak cross we're looking at here, Kristen?
Yes. Yep.
And kayak cross is new for Olympics just been Paris. Is that right?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay, so we want to show this one because it's a bit wild. It can be, can't it? Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
So let's take a look through. Oh, that's annoying. I can't mute the audio. 2 seconds. Hang on. Is that feeding back? Look, my mute buttons are beneath that. Hang on. Right, 2 seconds, everyone. Nothing like some technical difficulty to go in. Right. Quick question. Can you hear the feedback of the sound coming through, or is it okay?
No, I can't hear it.
Okay, fine. It's just me having a panic here. Race. So I'm going to stop here. Kristen, tell us what's happening so far, because all we've seen is 4 people drop into water and vomit towards a red pole.
Yeah. So yeah, just to tell everyone else about the Canoe Slalom is very different to this. It's one athlete on the course, top to bottom. They go through red and green gates. They're not meant to touch the gates. And it's just one of them, and they have to go down as fast as possible. And the way we analyze is all splits based, so all timing based. And now this sport came in for Paris Olympics. They wanted something a bit more exciting for the crowd, and that's where kite cross comes into it. And it's completely different sport. You've got 4 people dropping from a ramp height, which at the beginning of everyone's learning is very scary still. You now got contact, which our athletes are not used to contact. They're not used to having anyone else on the course. And now you're allowed to touch the gates where you're not before. So completely 2 different things, and these athletes are having to learn a completely different sport. And obviously from an analysis perspective, when we started looking at this a few years ago, the coaches didn't know what the sport was. The athletes didn't know what the sport was. The governing body didn't know what the sport was. So we're all learning this, and then I'm having to learn how to analyze it with things chopping and changing as well. So very interesting times, but yeah, it's an excellent for spectators, and it's really good fun.
So we have them dropping in, and they can make contact as they go through. They have to come to a red gate, means that they have to go back around it and upstream.
Yep.
And then green gate is down. So let's take a look at. We'll just carry it on a second.
Yes, obviously you can see on the poles the arrows with the direction they need to be maneuvering those gates.
Where did that come from?
A lot of people think, why are they in the water? They didn't do it very well, but no, they have to do a roll, and a technique has to be correct, which means I have to completely submerged, and it has to happen underneath that yellow pole.
Exactly under there. So they go in left and right along the course, going around the whacking each other, going through the green, doing this roll, and then eventually getting to, because I think the ending is just after roll.
Yes, got another up gate. So you always have 2 up gates in a course.
So always 2 up gates.
Yep. And you can see you can choose which up gate you could do. You just need to do one of them.
So there's always a left and right side that you could go to. Yeah.
Sometimes they're across from each other. Other times they could be spread out as well.
Right. Okay. Well, that looks completely exhausting. And then on Canoe Slalom, it's the same course that everyone follows one at a time that they run through.
Yes, and but that's about 24 gates. So on average they're looking about maybe 100 seconds, depending if it's a kayak or canoe. Very different timings with that, but yeah, they go through the course not having done the course before. They only get to see the course the night before or the morning of. They don't get to actually go on the course. They just practice as much as they can with what they predict could be with the gates out there. But yeah, and then you got kayak cross, which is very different again.
So that, again, I guess plays into the fact that they don't know the course until the night before and can't practice it. They go out and they're on the course. Your feedback and your collection methods have to be very quick turnaround that you're doing.
Yeah. So they always do a demo run, which is how they show the course. So athletes not competing, they go down the course and they can make sure they're happy with what the course is. We make sure we collect all that video. We have a lot of footage, so the coach and the athletes know they can go through it that night, that morning, and they can check how other people are doing it. So supporting them a lot in video, just so they have it. All our coaches have software and they're very good at using video, and they always have in our sport, which has been great. But then in a race, sometimes they might have to redo a run. So the course is the same for a heat 1 and a heat 2, and then your semi-final and final could be a different course, but they're also the same. So for example, if you go through the semi-final, you get to a final, you got maybe an hour between your 2 runs, and you want to know the information that you maybe did really well or somebody else did really well. We need to give that information really quickly. There's also the other bit that we can feed information before they're even on the course, where we analyze athletes before them. We can feedback how other people have done it well, share video, share splits, information, just to help with their decision making and what they do on the course as well.
So because my guess then is the benefit is to the person that gets to go last, so they can see what everyone else is doing. How's that decided with who goes first and last? Is it out the hat, alphabetical? Is there, what is it?
That would be interesting. Based on world ranking. World ranking 4 times a year, and the number 1 at that race will go last off in the heat 1 anyway. And then depending on where their timing goes based on that, it could then change. So, for example, in semi-finals, if you finished top of the ladder in a semi-final, then you're the last to go in the final.
Okay.
Some people don't like that. They don't want to go last. They want to go before. But so yeah, some people. It's quite interesting how people play it. But for especially heats and for us to analyze and feedback, the later on our athletes are, the more information we can get to help them.
I think a really big part there, obviously, like we all see the Olympics and we see the end of that 4-year cycle, whereas within those 4 years, you and those athletes are doing a hell of a lot of different things. You've got the world champs and you've got the whole selection process and everything you're going through. Could you maybe just give a snapshot of kind of what that looks like with that 4 years, how someone gets to the team, how they're supported through that?
Yeah. It's obviously the biggest difference to Olympic sport to a lot of sports who are maybe on a yearly base in terms of their main goals or their focus points. But as a sport, we are funded based off the Olympics. So our goal and aims is to do well at the Olympics. So everything else kind of follows that. But during a year, we have 7 events for the seniors. Well, a European Championships at the beginning, 5 World Cups, and then a World Championships at the end every year, except the Olympics that year that doesn't have a World Champs. That is kind of the biggest race is obviously at the Olympics. So every year we have a selection race at the beginning that brings certain level of paddlers together, and they all compete to be on the team for that year to represent Paddle UK. And 3 athletes per class. So we do canoe and kayak, even though it's canoe slalom. We also do kayak. They're 2 different type of boats and equipment. We pick 12 for a team at a senior level, under 23 and a junior, and we travel with them to their races. Then it works with funding. If they hit a certain level and we include them on our program, they get funded to be part of our program, which means they get coaching support, they get my support, they get a lot of the support staff like physio and psychologist support as well. So that's a yearly change as well, with the aim that it does change, but for this year we picked our Olympic team end of last year, and then we only get to take 4 athletes to the Olympics. So you're working with 24 in our program down to 4 just for the Olympics. So yeah, it's wow. Quite, yeah, it does go small.
That must be because in that time when you're working with 24, you've got 24 people that you have relationships and you're working with, and then it's great for the 4 that get through, but you've got 20 there that, I mean, how hard is that working with an athlete when they don't get the nod? You know, you must have a close relationship with all of them. That must be pretty challenging.
Yeah, and the coaches as well. We have 7 coaches so each coach has a number of athletes they work with, and it is an individual sport, but we perform as a team. So we all travel as a team. We all wear the same kit. My role is to support the whole team as a wider team. So that was really interesting at my first Olympic selections in 2019, where we chose our athletes, where we have a really strong pool of athletes that only one of them gets to go. And yeah, the selection policy is deciding of who goes for us. And you've got coaches that you're really good colleagues with who are, extremely upset, but you also got some that are really happy in the same room with the same thing with the athletes, and you have to support everyone. So you have to be on a neutral ground, which is, it's difficult at times.
Yeah, I bet. And the 7 coaches, is it all 7 coaches go to the Olympics, or do you say like a coach has a certain number of athletes, or does that coach work with every athlete?
So it depends on how the structure works each year, and it does tend to change each year. End of the year, we find out what athletes we're going to keep or join the program. Then based on the athletes and the mixed coaches, and then are assigned athletes for that year, and they work with them. We have senior level coaches that might only work with 2 or 3, and then you have academy level coaches who tend to work with about 5 or 6. So they have a lot more to work with. And then it depends on what athlete goes to the Olympics and how many accreditations. You don't necessarily find out very early how many accreditations you do get, and you don't get many accreditations. So it's based on the athletes who are going. The accreditations is also based on all the other sports that qualify for Team GB, and how many we get to who we're actually sending as part of the team.
Yeah. Another thing, if we think time-wise, what happened that within this role, obviously COVID happened there. How did things change for you and with supporting the team in that time?
Yeah, it's interesting. You actually obviously got a time to step back and delve into some analysis and explore into parts that we might not normally have the time to do. So that was interesting in my development of a lot of software. So I delved quite a lot heavily into Tableau. So we use Tableau a lot. Delved into that, and then also how we analyze slightly changed. We do analyze more than we were, so kick myself on the foot a bit for that. But yeah, we explored a lot more. But so that was a positive in that sense of where we took it. But I worked from home for 5 months, so I didn't go into work. And when you're not around, I'm full time in the office around the athletes, around the coaches, you have those corridor conversations. I really miss that because when you have a structured meeting for a catch up, you don't have those organic conversations you have when you're on the bank with them, or going for a coffee in the kitchen. So yeah, I really noticed the difference that had, and the importance of communication was really important, but also that also highlighted when you didn't communicate. So yeah, I think that really shone for me how much we need to be around and present to see what people are doing, hear what people are doing, so then we can help inform other ways around that as well, and how we can support them best, rather than being completely somewhere else and just giving them information, hoping they're needing it.
Yeah. Interesting there, because I think, like you said before, the importance of having those those relationships and those conversations, that was taken away, but you used your time very well at that moment with kind of at the start digging yourself back into skills and tools, and like you said, working on Tableau and having a bit more time and space to learn those things. So quite a lot of stuff, that kind of repetitive skills that you have there that you're pulling out at different times with self-development, sounds to me. Which is really cool. I think one of the things I wanted to look at here, maybe if I share this slide here, because we can talk on some different things with it. So this is obviously Paris, and you're filming here with a phone. We were just talking before about the quality of the phones now, and how were there other people doing this at the different parts of the course? Is this like when you're kind of doing the scouting of other people going around?
So this is a training session. So we went to Paris quite a lot. We're lucky to have access to the venue quite a lot. And for a sport, venue specific is really important because every venue is slightly different. We have a very, very good course at Lee Valley that obviously was from London, and it's still one of the best in the world, but it also is very different to other courses as well. So the more time we have on course, the better. And this is myself with Craig, the coach, and his athlete, Adam, and I was supporting him by doing the filming, which obviously allows Craig to view feedback and just be hands-free during training sessions. And we, like we talked about before, phone quality is brilliant. All our coaches and all us staff have to have an iPhone for work, so which actually is great for sharing, like airdropping video across each other's devices. Really simple feedback between each other. We find we tend to do iPads, but where I think more and more the camera of the phone is getting better, and you can actually connect it to a gimbal and run down a course when they're doing a full run as well. So it's always in their pocket.
So do you actually do that sometimes? You're legging it down the whole course, filming them as you go?
I try against it because there's a lot. Sometimes it would work if you have one athlete, but when we're supporting a session like that, sometimes we have 4 or 5, sometimes 12 athletes. So it actually wouldn't work to do that. But sometimes an individual coach might do that because they have the time to run down and up again. We just don't have the time in a session for one person to do it. So I would, Benji, our other analyst, might be with me, or I get the help of a physio or another staff member to help, and we would be filming a full run in 3 sections basically. So we cover different sections of the course.
And is that so? I think at Lee Valley, have you got cameras fixed in place, or is it go out to different parts and you're filming with a mobile solution?
We're very, very lucky at Lee Valley. We've got a IP solution with 10 cameras. Is a slalom course can be, even more than 200-meter course, which is a lot to capture on a video camera and to get accurate, clear understanding what's happening. If you're just standing somewhere and zooming, you're not going to get focused. So you do need to have a lot of different camera angles to support that. So we're lucky we get 10. We don't use 10 in one. It just allows us to have different views. We normally have about 5 different camera angles, and the software we have to do it snips it all together, and we can send them the video of their sessions quite quickly, which is very beneficial.
Yeah, so it's a really quick turnaround again of that video of the run going back to the coaches and to the athletes, and it's obviously all time based. A run is good if it's fast. That's your key. That's your key metric you've got there, which is obviously very different to think back to netball, baseball, everything that you do in those team-based things, where there'd be a huge range of different metrics, but your main, correct me if I'm wrong, your main delivery method is getting that video and those key bits of information to the coach and going, this was the faster run, this was the slower run, this is someone who did it faster, and supporting them getting the resources as fast as possible because they haven't got much time.
Yeah, exactly that. We want high quality video quickly, and we want to give accurate splits as fast as possible as well. And then focusing, if one of those things you can't do, okay, you focus on one thing, how quickly can we provide that to them?
So speed and accuracy there, which I guess is also accuracy. If we think back to the roles you had before with the data providers, that was all about accuracy. And to me, when you want to increase the accuracy and you've also got to increase the speed, you have to take away the amount of stuff you're doing there. You can't be overloading with what you've got, can you?
Yeah, definitely that. And this being my first time-based sport, timing obviously is a different level of accuracy again. So you're having to be super accurate. And we're lucky we get video provided at competitions, but also the video might not be very good. So having to learn different angles, how the video, the perception for somebody is very different, having to understand that to get the most accurate. So that's a huge thing with me and Benji, the analyst, to make sure we are on page with that, to make sure we're doing the right thing. But then also, if you're, like you said, if you want to get information quickly, sometimes you have to be a little bit inaccurate just to get that information fast. So coaches are aware it might be slightly 0.2, 0.1 second inaccurate, but if that allows them to get that information quicker, because they're not worried about that, they're worried about somebody being 2 seconds or 3 seconds faster than them. That's, and then you can do your post race afterwards. You can then delve in and fix the accuracy there. Nice.
And I think, one of the things, if we think about when you went to there in 2018, so 6 years now, Kristen, correct me if I'm wrong. You've been there. Obviously you've talked there, like when COVID happened, you made work harder for yourself by finding more things to analyze. But how have things evolved? Obviously, we know kayak cross has come in, completely new discipline there. But how have things changed since you've been in the role?
Yeah, I think it's like understanding. We've talked about this, about performance questions that is being asked, and how can we influence the coaches to be able to answer that. Sometimes they don't know, or they might have a performance question and the next day it doesn't matter. So trying to pull the right information out so we can support them the best is really important. But also that does chop and change depending on the year, depending on the coach, depending on the setup, depending on the sport. That keeps changing. So it's trying to be clear on that. And if something does move in a way that we stop analyzing a certain way because we want to be focusing on that, it's not a bad thing. It's just where we think it needs to be going. So we're doing a lot of development in creating our own database and going through Azure and using Tableau and making sure our data is streamlined as much as we can. we're quite lucky at the UK side. We have support out there with performance data that they can create things for us. It's not just us. We can really learn how to properly do it and build it properly. So there's a lot of things. I don't think we've changed much. A lot of the technology and how we do things hasn't changed much, but how we analyze is also changing and delving in. But the big question is, are we giving insights and are we providing what the coaches need? And if we don't, we have to keep coming back. And simple, we always say do the basics well, just doing really good video, or get that done. If that's not done right, then you can't do anything else. So keep going back to the basics.
Just
yes.
a couple of questions from Pod in there.
A couple of questions, yes.
Just give you a picture of Lee Valley, the facilities, if you wanted to share it just in your Slack.
Can't get to my Slack, but there we go. Sorry. Hang on, Kristen, a couple of questions here that we'll ask through. So Pod asked, are there any issues with the frame rate of cameras and how the video analysis software reports time?
Depends, because we often use iPads, phones, cameras. Sometimes we do have issues. So how we get around that is to make sure the devices we are using in a race, we use that beforehand. And we're quite clear on what it can and can't do with that. So example, sometimes we can't control when an event changes it on their end. We have quite good connections with there to speak and make sure they can do it in a way that we need. But then sometimes we just need the video to be able to give the information quickly. So if we're going back down to basics and we're not getting the frame rate we need, we just have to do what we need to do with the information we've got, basically.
Yeah. Cool. Thank you, Pod. I think your other question there was just kind of commenting. He said an issue with golf and GoPro cameras needed to get more precise than a 1/25 of a second. And I think that kind of feeds into that, Kristen, doesn't it? That, like you said, if ideal world, everything, you've got all the frames, the exact moments you need, but if you haven't got that, you come back to the best you can get at that time to still get that speed of delivery running through.
Yeah, exactly. And we have a level of a gap. We tell the coaches that the like little error margin, that if you need to get the information, we are going to have this slight error, but because a lot of the angles can be slightly subjective, because it's not lined up with something and the angles can be really far away, and we're having to analyze a lot of athletes. So it's a lot of work to do. So yeah, they understand they're willing to take that little pinch of error to be able to get that information that is delving a bit deeper into it. But it's the context. You always need to put video with the data. It can't be separate. It's to support it. So that's where that context is really important.
Yeah, nice. One quick one I'm going to show here, just because Ollie has passed this. So this is at Lee Valley, Kristen.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Right. Well found, Ollie.
It's the right one.
It's the right one. That's good. That could have been embarrassing. So
it looks really green and sunny.
Yeah, look at that. When was that taken?
Heavily edited.
Yeah, very heavily edited. So tell us here, Kristen, where's this? Is this a start up here?
Just where you were, just by the cafe. So near where you were before, where the bridge. So the cafe there is the center. That where your hand is a conveyor belt. So they just take the conveyor belt up to that square just above, and that's the start pool. So they would hang about in that, or sit in the box, and then they'll start going down the course from there. That is the Olympic course, which was used for the Olympics. And then the course down the bottom, that is called the legacy course, which some of the younger ones use, or a lot of the public use. So we don't use that one. But yeah, so because they have a conveyor belt, they can come up, do a full run, come up again and go on the conveyor belt and not have to get out their boats. So they can sit on their boat for an hour session and not have to get out, which if you're a canoe and you're kneeling down the whole time, it's quite painful, I can imagine.
Yeah, I bet. And then you've got cameras dotted around here.
Yes, on the Olympic one.
Okay, cool. And is this are you based in this room? Are you based in this room? Where do you work from?
Yeah, just where you are there. It's the Lee Valley Council own it. So there's a cafe up there, and the general public do rafting there and do canoeing, and they use it for stand-up paddle as well. We've got a section of the building that we hire out that is just for canoe slalom and kite cross. So everybody in that section of the building is either employed by UKSI or Paddle UK. So we're very lucky. We get our own gym and our own facilities, and yeah, obviously brilliant facility.
Nice. Okay, one of the things you mentioned in there, Kristen, with about like the data support you get from UKSI, I wanted to just our last section to talk through here. Is there anything else you wanted to add on the canoe slalom piece before we move on from that?
No, I probably would just say that I didn't know anything about canoe slalom when I started, but I absolutely love the sport, and it's just a great environment, and everyone shares and connects with each other, which is a really nice environment. And by delving into a completely sport I didn't know, but being open to learning about it, and yeah, you can definitely find yourself in different areas. But yeah, love it.
So with the data support stuff, and obviously with UKSI, UK Sports Institute, you're a PA technical lead. So tell us what, with UKSI specifically in mind, what is your technical lead role? What are you doing there within the organisation?
Yeah, so currently my role with canoeing is 3 days a week. It was full-time, but I've picked up this technical lead role currently 2 days a week, which is a leadership role, supporting and mentoring some other practitioners. So you got Julia Wells, who you always have a head of your discipline, the UKSI, and then under that you have your technical leads, and then they're part of the institute, and then you've also got your practitioners who are all embedded in sports. So I do a bit of both. I'm embedded in Paddle UK and Canoe Slalom, but then I also mentor and support other analysts. So what that means is I keep in contact with them. We have chats. I go visit them. I see what their workflows are. And if there's any pinch points I see them either struggling with or an area they need to focus in, I can figure out where the support is. Or if there's something that we need to celebrate, we can bring that into it. So the really good thing about the UKSI is the community. You have multiple Olympic sports and analysts that we have a really nice network that we can just pin a question over to somebody if we want to see how they've done it, or ask if anyone else has felt like this before. So we're really lucky to use that community. And I guess my tech lead role is to support that learning, and to maybe take a bit of weight off these analysts who are in sports, to help them bring into other expertise to support them in that space. But it's a role that's I'm not a line manager, but I'm a technical lead. So they can vent at me. They can tell me how they're feeling, just to make it feel like a bit of a safe space away from their sport, and hopefully we can support them in that.
Yeah, I like that. That's a really nice setup and environment, isn't it? I think that's really lucky with having that level of support around everyone that's in there. Okay, so obviously as we start to come towards wrapping up some things here, Kristen, I think there's so much to reflect on and pull away here. But something I wanted to, a couple of questions I had was, and I think everyone will agree, you've had so much experience and so many different learning journeys, sports you've been in, environments you've been in, live, individuals, outside of a team, working directly within a team, Olympic cycles. Where do you have ideas on where you think performance analysis will go, or different skill sets that are coming more to the front at the minute? Obviously, I think, like you mentioned, Tableau was something that you worked in. What do you have a feel of key skills that people need to be getting now?
It's funny you say it. We as part of the institute, we do forums, get all the analysts together. We have a day of sharing, and yesterday actually we were asked the question, what do we think is going to happen, or what do we not want to do in 10 years time, and to see what practitioners don't want to be doing or don't think they'll be doing. And a big thing is a lot of people don't want to be doing the tagging, the manual tagging with a lot our sports, we don't get that information. We have to do it ourselves. So that is where a lot of our time is taken. So looking at the importance of how AI can help that, or how we can get some softwares to look at doing the analysis for us. But I think it's going into that insight part that we're not lost, where analysts are still going to be really important, but the data is going to be created for us or supported, that we then have time to delve into and be more on side with the athletes and coaches to share that insight. Because I often find that is the time you don't have. You do all the analysis, you share the data, but you don't have time to do the insights. And all the sports or the athletes might not understand how important delving into it and understand the insights is. So yeah, I'm hoping down the line we spend a bit more time in that side of it, and being around a bit more.
So really becoming really good communicators with all that information, because I think there's going to be more and more data coming through, because there should be AI tools and things that are bringing that through. Your job is to understand all that information, summarize it, get the key points, and put that in a format that people can understand and you can have the conversations from.
Yeah, definitely. Because there's just going to be more and more data all the time. It's getting more and more. And how do we handle that? And more is not necessarily better. It's how we're smart about it and about it to use it well. So having a good data structure, and how your sport supports that to then get that insight and connection.
Yeah, nice. Okay, so if anyone's got any questions here for Kristen, please ask them. Use the same section on the right hand side, or just type them in the chat. Yes, go, Brad.
So with your, you mentioned kind of not doing an Olympic year, and you've got like 20 plus athletes like you're working with. Do you have to tailor your data video to each individual athlete, or do you have kind of a structured workflow that's the same for every athlete, if you get what I mean?
Yeah. We look at it more as a program, because there is only two of us analysts to do a lot. Yeah. So we often do it as a program at the beginning of the year. We use the winter to figure out how we're going to best display or share the information. Okay, this is how we're going to do it, and this is what you're going to get. This is what it's going to look like for the rest of the season. Athletes will get their individual reports, because obviously it's individual, but the way it looks will be the same. Obviously their data will be slightly different. So it's kind of based on that. You might have a few Olympic level, once you know the athletes and coach, that you delve in separately to what they want. And the way we do it with Tableau, you can just pull in a question, or they come in and we can delve into it deeper. But the big thing is we don't want to share all the data, because it's overwhelming, it's too much. Let's give a taste and get them to delve into it, ask the questions, and we can go further. So yeah, it's looking at a program level.
Oh, that's perfect. So because I was thinking, as you mentioned before, when you midfield, some coaches and athletes don't know how they take it in, so I wasn't sure if it's the same kind of in a way. But that's great here. Yeah,
we always do it through, never just to the athlete. It always goes through the coach to the athlete, because it's important to be stepping on people's toes, and that is a huge part of the journey for the coach to be a part of that. So most of it goes coach to share to the athlete, or coach and athlete together.
Nice.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Nice. Very good question, Bradley. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, I mean, things I'm picking up, Kristen, and Brad and Ollie, anything you picking up, is that I think what I've seen there is your experience across all those different sports and techniques you've done is because you chucked yourself in very much at the deep end. Everything sounded completely chucking yourself at the deep end, and learning under pressure. And, I think asking questions of others, building those relationships with everyone. But to me, it's like you put yourself in so many different sports and environments that you gave yourself the chance to learn. Are there common themes throughout everything that you've done that you feel has helped you get to where you are now, and the key things that you do in your role?
I think it's exactly what you just said. It's the understanding of the relationships, and sometimes it's the ability to say no. It's easy to say though, isn't it? But if you say yes to everything, but it's more of not saying no, but yes, but being more honest with where you're going to go with it or how much time it's going to take. So I think being honest and open, being knowing when to admit you've done wrong, and that's been a huge learning curve over the years. And all the students that come through us, it's trying to really hone in on everyone's going to make errors, and that's how we learn. And it's going to happen. We're not perfect. We're only human, and it is data and it is technology, but being open to your mistakes, and that's how you build those relationship coaches and athletes, has been a really big thing across those. And obviously those relationships I find really important. The ability to adapt as well, and how you handle yourself in different situations, and be able to check and challenge yourself and reflect, I think has been really important.
Nice. Perfect.
Can Kristen hear me if I ask a question? Can you hear me, Kristen?
Can you hear Ollie?
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you think more analysts should work, like be exposed to more sports? I mean, I lost count at about 15 for you. And a follow-up question is, do you think you're going to work in any more sports, or is you going to stay with Canoe?
The first question is 100%. When I speak at unis, my first advice is to don't just work in one sport. And I know it's quite common, people want to work in football, but I think by understanding another sport or delving into another sport, you can bring a different, fresh mind to a completely new sport as well. So don't close yourself off to one thing. And you just learn so much about yourself, about different sport, different coaches, and everyone is slightly different you can put together. So 100% think it's worth spreading yourself across different ways just to learn. And especially, you never know. I just love sport, so.
Brilliant. Happy days. Okay, cool. So what we got here, just a couple of things just before we sign off here, just so people are aware. And Ollie, could you maybe just pop this in the chat? Just for those that you are on here, our next webinar is a week today that Bradley and Ollie will be running, looking at the NAC Sport Hub online platform. But this will be Bradley sharing his experiences of how he uses this with his rugby team. So from a playing perspective and how everyone works on it. So that's a really good one that's there. And I think Ollie's posting in the link of how people can join that one. And the final one here is obviously anything you want to learn more from, you can get in touch with us. If you've got a question for Kristen that you couldn't think of, but you've watched it back now, you've got one, then I will be the middleman between Kristen's knowledge and you. So get in touch with us. Come and visit. Come and learn more here. And Ollie, have you got the link to our WhatsApp community? If I can just ask you to drop that one in, so we share a weekly post about interesting information, things that you could be aware of. So come and join us on there if you want to. But I just wanted to finish by really saying thank you, Kristen. Thank you for giving up your time and sharing your experiences, your knowledge with us, because I think there's so much to learn from that. Big things I'm taking away, obviously, the importance of those relationships, like you said towards the end, that being honest and open and admitting when you're wrong. I think good skills for life for all of us, not just analysis. And I think you've shown that adaptability throughout is fantastic. Put yourself in loads of different situations, learn from everything, adapt to it, and it works. So yeah, thank you very much. I think it's brilliant. I'm sure everyone that's watching here will agree as well. So thank you very much.
No worries. Thanks for having me.
Pleasure. Okay, all set, guys? All good? Brilliant. Thank you again, Kristen. And if we don't speak to you before, we'll have happy holidays, and we'll see you soon. All right. Take care, everyone. Bye now.
Thank you, Kristen.